To save the female, I fell into the sea. He married me to repay his debt. But after marriage, his long-lost first love. Now there's news about his first love. He couldn't wait to give me 5 million and said, let's get a divorce. Just as I was about to kneel and beg him, I suddenly regained my memory. It turned out I was the sole heir of a top tier and had a childhood engagement with a wealthy fiancé. At this moment, Yunshu handed me the divorce papers. Sign it. This money is enough for a life. After speaking, he turned and hurried out. Decisively signing the divorce papers, I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Do you know who I am? Before I finished, the woman on the other end replied impatiently, How would I know who you are? I raised an eyebrow and said, You can't. Ellie, have I gone soft or have you gone wild? The woman was silent for 2 seconds before shouting loudly, Jihuai, you're alive. Then her voice turned sour. 2 years of no news. I thought you ran off with some wild woman. I didn't respond, but instead instructed her, I've sent, come pick me up. The next morning, as I stepped out of the glittering diamond-encrusted Ferrari drove up. A stunning blonde woman stepped out of the driver's seat. She approached to give me a hug, but I pushed her away coldly. I walked straight past her and Ellie stomped her foot in frustration. I flew all night from the US, and this is how you treat me. I glanced at her and said calmly, let's go. After that, I looked back at the place I had lived. I don't belong here, just as Yunshu never belonged to me. Having been humiliated here for 2 years, I finally regained my memory. Now it's time to investigate who was behind my injury and memory loss. 2 days later, Yunshu returned to He locked himself in the bedroom as soon as he went. The information that man wasn't his first love. It was a wasted. The servant knocked and entered. She handed him the divorce papers. Sir has already signed and left. He didn't take anything with him including the bank card you gave him. Yunshu frowned slightly. That man knows nothing and has no money. He's likely pretending to be pitiful to gain sympathy. Yunshu decided to process the divorce quick to avoid further complications. As the servant left, her assistant Yang Ting walked in. Mr. Ji has returned. Yunshu looked annoyed. She expected him not to let go of the divorce. Yang Ting shook her head and said no. The media captured Mr. Ji entering and exiting a hotel with the American tycoon heiress. They stayed overnight. Yunshu's face darkened. So he actually knows Ellie. No wonder he didn't want the money she gave. It turns out he had already planned it. Yunshu, already in a bad mood, felt even more. So she called her best friend, Shen Chuni, to go clubbing together. Meanwhile, in Kyoto's Never Sleep, I looked at the row of beautiful young women and smiled with satisfaction. Ellie was upstairs discussing worried I'd get bored. She invited some friends to keep me company. Swirling a wine glass, I asked, how? A few girls nearby laughed. Big brother, I'm 23. Big brother, I'm 21. Looking at the friends Ellie had found for me, I was thoroughly pleased. Each one's looks and figure out they're no less stunning than that Yunshu. If he can divorce me for his first love, why can't I enjoy my freedom? I smiled and said to the beauty sitting next to me, have a drink with me, and if I'm happy, I'll gift you a sports car. The young beauty, upon hearing this, immediately poured me a drink. She leaned closer and said, here's to you. Seeing my generosity, all the girls enthusiastically toasted, trying their best to amuse me. Was drinking with Shen Chuning. Shen Chuning suddenly, Yunshu, you've been searching for so long. Isn't it time to let go? Yunshu had been searching for that, even posting a $30 million reward, but there was still no trace of him. Shen Chuning knew Yunshu's capability. For her to not find the man meant he was most likely no longer alive. But Shen Chuning didn't dare directly to her face. Yunshu said nothing and downed her drink. Shen Chuning, knowing her temper, didn't press further. Instead, did Jihuai really want the divorce? Everyone knew that 2 years ago, Jihuai, before they got married, he pursued her tirelessly. In the end, to appease, she agreed to register their marriage. Jihuai did everything to win her favor, almost offering his heart for someone who loved Yunshu. How could he divorce her so? Something wasn't right. Thinking about Jihuai and Ellie entering, Yunshu's expression turned. At that, Shen Chuning suddenly pointed to the lobby below. That man down there looks just like Jihuai. Shen Chuning rubbed her eyes. Wait, no, Jihuai couldn't possibly be this. Hearing this, Yunshu squinted her and looked in the direction he pointed. In the VIP booth, a few young and beautiful were seated around a man. The man was lounging on his long legs casually propped, gently swirling the wine, and his whole demeanor radiated a lazy yet aristocratic aura. A girl enthusiastically poured, and I smiled charmingly. She couldn't resist my captivating smile. Yunshu looked at the man downstairs, her heart skipping a beat. Wasn't that Jihuai? Shen Chuning confirmed again and again, her eyes practically popping out. No way, it's really him. And he's surrounded by so many. His charm is boundless. Yunshu glared at me, her beautiful eyes frosty. This man, being caught entering a hotel with Elle, but now he dared to blatantly party like this. Jihuai, you really have some nerve. I was engrossed in chatting with a group of young when I keenly sensed a sharp gaze locked onto me. I turned my head and saw a familiar figure approaching. My eyes flickered, and I deliberately curved my lips into Yunshu pushed through the crowd and divorce papers signed, and you're out here partying. Jihuai, are you that insatiable? Leaning back on the sofa, life is short. Why not enjoy it while it lasts? Yunshu glared at me from above, her face ice cold. Behind her, Shen Chuning whispered, Yunshu, could it be that he's lost his mind after you dumped? I chuckled lightly. Miss Shen, you're joking. I stretched out my arms, resting them on the shoulders of the beauties. Why would I waste my time on abandon the entire force? Shen Chuning looked shocked. He actually called Yunshu a dog woman. Is this still the Jihuan he knew? Yunshu stared at me, surrounded by her expression was extremely. I was now completely different from before. I met her gaze. A hint of provocation flashed in my eyes. Miss Xia, do you think I must admit, this woman does have a great face. She exuded an untouchable aura. At this moment, she was looking. A dangerous vibe emanated from her. At that moment, a burly man staggered drunken. Two beauties fighting over a man? Why not come to me instead? I'll treat you well, he said. Yunshu glanced sideways and frowned. The burly man approached me instead. He pushed aside the pretty girl next to me. What's so good about this weakling? One slap from me and he'd be flying. The greasy man reached his hand toward. A flash of murderous intent appeared in my eye. Just as his disgusting hand, I acted. In the next instant, I slapped him hard. The burly man screamed and collapsed to, You brat, how dare you? Before he could finish, he was sent flying across the room. Seeing this, the man's bodyguards rushed at me. My eyes gleamed with bloodlust. I greeted them head on. Knocking in less than 10 seconds, all 4 or 5 bodyguards were on the floor. Dusting off my clothes, I calmly returned, sipping my wine leisurely. Shen Chuning pointed at me in disbelief. Huaini was this strong? But he used to look so gentle. How did he suddenly become so Was his gentleness all an act? Huaini turned out to be so No way, he used to look so gentle. How did his strength suddenly explode? Could it be that his gentleness was all an act? Yunshu stared at me, the meaning in her eyes gradually faded. Her red lips curled into an amused smile. This ex-husband of hers seemed much more interesting than she thought. Married for 2 years, always obedient and docile. But after the divorce, his personality also. Why did his moves just now look so familiar? Yunshu squinted her eyes. A trace of doubt vaguely appeared. Seeing the pretty girls standing aside, I curled my finger. With a teasing smile, I said, Why? Come over and pour me a drink. The girls were just about to sit when a sharp glare suddenly shot over. It was Yunshu. Her cold gaze scared the girls so much they fled immediately. Yunshu of the offending her in the capital might cost you your life. I glanced at the women indifferent. Yunshu, may lightning strike you for ruining. Yunshu frowned and glared at me. Why, we're not officially divorced yet. Right now to divorce, we need to go through a 1-month cooling off period. That means in 1 month, we can officially get the divorce certificate. I sneered. Yunshu, don't tell me you're having second thoughts? Yunshu scoffed. You're overthinking. I poured myself a glass. That's better. Stared at the arrogant and handsome man, unable to figure out what went wrong. Just a few days ago, he was clinging to her, crying about not wanting. Now he seemed like a completely different person. What's your relationship with Ellie? Yunshu questioned me sternly. My business doesn't need to be explained to an ex-wife. Ex-wife? Ellie's shocked and hurt voice rang out. She stood not far away, pointing angrily at Yunshu. You actually married another woman behind my back. For a moment, Yunshu's gaze turned icy cold. The air around her dropped significantly. She actually dared to call her a wild. I shot a gaze filled with hidden killing intent. Ellie immediately backed. She stuck out her tongue playfully. Yunshu, an ex-wife should act as if she were dead. Understand? Hearing this, Yunshu felt I couldn't be bothered with her. I motioned to Ellie. Let's change the place. Ellie immediately followed. Yunshu stared at my departing, her eyes filled with rolling. A thought suddenly popped into her mind. How did he know Ellie, an American? And their relationship seemed quite close. 2 years ago, I was injured. I remembered nothing. For the past 2 years, I had been living in his. I hadn't even gone out to. There's no way I could have known someone like Ellie. Yunshu's eyes flickered, unless they had known each other before. Shen Chuning, investigate Ellie for me. I want to know everything about her and Jihuai. Yunshu paused, and also checked Jihuai's background. Shen Chuning responded and teased. Why do I feel like you're the one who got dumped? Meanwhile, I left the night city and went straight to the hotel. What I said about changing places, actually just to provoke Yunshu. I wanted to make this dog woman. On the way, Ellie kept chattering as she drove, asking about my relationship with I couldn't handle it, so I casually explained that she saved my life. Then I married her. Now her white moonlight is back, so we're getting divorced. She saved your life. Ellie looked at me in disbelief. It's always Jihuai saving others, but someone saved him this time. My face grew serious. Someone hired assassins from Haisha to kill me. Ellie's expression changed. Haisha is a notorious East Asian assassin organ. Their criminal methods are arrogant. They're all ruthless people who value money. As long as they're paid enough, they'll do anything. I recalled an incident when I was in danger in the tropics. A dark light flashed in my eye. Who exactly hired the Black Veil to kill me? Ellie asked again if I had found the mastermind. I shook my head. I had just regained my memory. I haven't had time to investigate yet. Ellie said seriously, "Give me 2 days. I'll look into it." I nodded. Okay. Ellie suddenly thought of something. There's a bounty post online for capturing you. The reward has risen to 30 million US. I raised an eyebrow. 30 million USD. Who is so eager to take my life? It must be to capture you for such a high price. They probably want me to save their life. I didn't pay much attention. There are plenty of posts about me online, but almost no one dares to take. Back at the hotel, I washed up and got ready to rest. Suddenly, I remembered something. My jade pendant is still with Yunshu. 2 years ago, when I married Yunshu, I gave him that jade pendant as a wedding gift. At that time, I didn't know its importance. Now that I've regained my memory, I regret it deeply. How could I give away something so important? Without it, my future actions will be so I must get the jade pendant back. The next day, Shen Chuning went to Xiaxi to find Xiaoyu. All the information that could be found about Jihuai is here. Xiaoyushu opened the file handed to him. It only contained a few lines of record. That's all? Shen Chuning shrugged helplessly. His information must have been encrypted. Other than basic details, nothing else can be found. Jihuai's information is actually encrypted. Yunshu immediately frowned. This was something he hadn't expected at all. Ordinary people wouldn't do something. Yunshu stared at the document a glint of coldness flashing. Just then, Yang Ting knocked and Mr. Qi is here, Yang Ting said, but before I walked in with a commanding presence. Yunshu looked at me, a fleeting, subtle surprise flashing in his. Shen Chuning looked at me, remembering my bold actions last night, and subconsciously took a step back. I ignored him and walked straight up to Yunshu. "Give me back my jade pendant." Yunshu, staring at me, who seemed entirely different and unconsciously swallowed. "What jade pendant?" I sneered. I knew Yunshu would forget. I remembered he didn't even look at it and casually left it. "When we got married, I gave you a jade pendant." My tone turned icy. Yunshu thought for a moment. "It seems there was such a 2 years ago when he rescued me. That jade pendant was hanging around. It even had my name engraved on it." Yunshu leaned back in his chair. "You came to me just to get that jade?" I crossed my arms. "What else?" "Yunshu, you wouldn't think I came to reconcile with you." Yunshu's face turned cold. I bitterly smiled. "Don't worry, I won't. I'd rather we remain strangers. Reconcile? Maybe in the." I had no patience. I reached out again. Yunshu glanced at me indifferent. I threw it away. My body stiff. He threw it away? He actually threw away my jade. Yunshu picked up the coffee next to him and took a sip, speaking expressionlessly. "I threw it away a long time ago." "Threw it away?" He actually threw away my jade. Yunshu picked up his coffee and took a sip, speaking with a blank "Just because you gave it to me, I had to." I slammed my palm on the table, my face livid with anger. "Yunshu, where did you throw it?" Yunshu still kept his emotion. "I forgot." I clenched my fists tight, a murderous impulse stirring deep within. Yunshu, keenly noticing the flash of killing intent in my eye, found it even more amusing. In 2 years of marriage, this was the first time he'd seen me this angry. We stared each other down for a moment. Suddenly, I laughed. "Yunshu, I'm giving you 10 days. If you don't find my jade pen, I'll withdraw the divorce application. During this 1 month cooling off, as long as one party disagrees, they can withdraw the application at the." Yunshu was stunned. His face immediately turned cold. He knew it. This man wouldn't agree to a divorce. The jade must have been a pre-planned excuse. My smile grew even brighter. "As long as I don't agree to your precious pure will just be an unpresentable mistress." Yunshu's gaze turned icy as he stared, standing and stepping close. "Jihuai, listen to me. This divorce is happening," I sneered coldly. "Then quickly find my jade pendant. If you can't find it, I'll make the entire Xia Corporation pay with you. This is your only chance." With that, I gave him one last warning look and decisively turned and walked. As soon as I left the office, I saw a man with dyed yellow hair walking toward me. It was Song Mingyu, the eldest and one of Yunshu's admirers. Ever since I married Yunshu, he'd been causing trouble for me constantly. Song Mingyu saw me coming out of Yunshu's office, and he froze for a moment. Song Mingyu pointed at me angrily. "What are you? None of your business." I replied coldly. In the past, to please Yunshu, I restrained my temper, trying hard to be an obedient and considerate. Whenever Song Mingyu picked I endured silently or avoided him but now I had no intention of putting up with it anymore. Song Mingyu didn't expect the usually timid and to dare speak to him this way. His face twisted with anger. "Yunshu is divorcing you, so why are you still clinging to him?" I smirked. Young Master Song, Yunshu and I haven't finalized the so we're still legally married. Song Mingyu stormed up to me, arrogantly pointing a finger at my legally married, so what? Yunshu doesn't even like you. I waved my hand dismissively. What matters is, as long as I am his rightful husband. Song Mingyu exploded with rage. I've seen shameless freeloaders dragging your feet on the divorce. As he spoke, he pulled out a check from his bag and threw it at my face. Here's $1 million. You take the money and get as far away as possible. I squinted at the air, lazily picking up the check. $1 million yuan? Song Mingyu glared at me. What do you mean? I want you to leave Yunshu forever. Are you insane? I chuckled. Young Master Song, a mere $1 million yuan? You have the nerve to offer that? I flicked. With a swift motion, the check spun through the air. The edge of the paper, sharp like a blade, sliced cleanly. The check flew through the air and left a bloody cut on Song Mingyu's face. Song Mingyu clutched his stinging face, which was covered in blood. His hand was covered in. You dared to cut my face! Song Mingyu roared in anger. I'm going to kill you. I sneered. Just you? 2 years ago, even those highly trained mad dogs in the truck couldn't kill me. And you think you can? Song Mingyu, enraged and raised his hand and swung it at my face. But before his hand could touch me, I caught it firmly. Then came a crisp crack. Song Mingyu let out a pig-like scream, collapsing to his knees with a thud. His right arm twisted at an unnatural angle. I looked down at the kneeling Song Mingyu, raising an eyebrow. If you don't learn your next time, it won't just be your hand. At that moment, an angry voice came from Jihuai, what are you doing? Song Mingyu immediately started as soon as he saw Yunshu. Yunshu, Jihuai, he tried to kill me. I turned to look at She, clapping my hands. Can't you see? I'm cleaning up the trash. Yunshu didn't. He immediately ordered someone to take Song Mingyu, apologized to Song Mingyu at the hospital. Yunshu commanded me. The Song and Xia families, and they cooperate in business. Song Mingyu is of the Song family, and they won't take this lightly. I stared at Yunshu with a look that said, he's not worth it. With that, I turned to leave. Stop! Yunshu grabbed my arm. A flash of coldness passed through my eyes. I shook him off easily. Don't touch me. Save your hands for you think I'm still the I was before. The one Shen Chuning, standing nearby, gasped. Yunshu's aura radiated an icy chill. Are you tired of living? He asked coldly. If you want to die, I laughed disdainfully. Go ahead. I sneered disdainfully. You can try. Yunshu was shrouded in an indescribable danger. Don't think that with Ellie back, I wouldn't dare touch. I raised an eyebrow. Who's backing me up? Are you jealous? Yunshu choked. He doesn't even like me. Why would he be jealous? He was just feeling very irritated. If you want to play hard to get in front of me, I advise you to drop. You'd better give up on that idea as I glanced at him. Hard to get my foot. Damn woman. Do you really think you're everyone's favorite? With that, I turned around and left. Yunshu's cold face watched my departing. After I left, Shen Chuning dared to approach Yunshu. Is this the same guy who loved you to death? Could he have been possessed by someone else? Yunshu couldn't figure out how in just a few. This man could have changed so much. I left Xia's estate and not long after, I received a call from Xia Linger. Xia Linger is Yunshu's younger. She has a lively and sweet, is warm and generous, and has a particularly love. When she learned about my divorce from her, she worried, so she invited me out to relax. Among the Xia family, Xia Linger was the only one and my only friend after losing. Since I would soon leave Kyoto, I wanted to thank her properly before leaving. So I agreed. At the mall, I took Xia Linger straight to her favorite Hermes counter. Half an hour later, Xia Linger walked out with the diamond-studded crocodile she had wanted but could. She left the Hermes counter in a dazed state of happiness. Although she usually spends money lavishly, but spending 4 million yuan on a bag is way too. Brother Jihuai, are you really giving me this bag? Xia Linger stared at the bag worth as much as a house, a little in disbelief. I smiled and nodded. Your birthday is next month. Consider it an early birthday gift from me. Xia Linger was overwhelmed with emotion. Brother Jihuai, you're amazing. But where did you get so much money? Xia Linger looked puzzled. Didn't you divorce my sister without asking for a penny or a house? And you haven't worked in the past 2 years either, so there's no way you'd have any income. I responded calmly. It's from my save. Xia Linger paused, then suddenly realized something. Her eyes widened as she stared at me. Did you recover your memory? I nodded. Xia Linger was stunned. No wonder you like a completely changed person. So it's because you recovered. Xia Linger's eyes sparkled as she. Brother Jihuai, you're so well. Are you secretly a young master? I laughed and waved it off. Just remove the young master part. Xia Linger happily nodded. Haha. Take care of me. That afternoon, Xia Linger and I raided all the luxury After dinner that evening, Xia Linger went home with her while I returned to the hotel. Not long after I arrived, I received a call from Xia Linger. As soon as I answered, a strange male voice came through the line. Are you Xiaolinger's brother? You have half an hour to get to Yunjing Villa, or prepare to collect Xiaolinger's remains. At Yunjing Villa, Xiaolinger was tied up on the sofa, her mouth sealed with tape. Two bodyguards stood on either side of her, never taking their eyes off her. The man hung up the phone. He turned to look at the two Why aren't you untying Miss Xia yet? Free her hands now. Xiaolinger tore the tape off her mouth. When Shijie, are you out of your damn mind? You even dared to kidnap. In Kyoto's three major families, apart from the Xia family, there were the Wen. Although the Wen family's relationship, they still had some connections. Miss, calm down. I won't hurt you. Inviting you was just a way to get Jihuai to come to me. Xiaolinger's heart sank. She had just learned that I had injured Song Mingyu and crippled one of his hands. Wen Shijie was one of Song Mingyu's. Kidnapping her must be his way, seeking revenge for Song Mingyu. No way, I can't let Brother Jihuai come here. Xiaolinger tried to grab the phone, but the two bodyguards stopped her. I warn you, Brother Jihuai and my sister aren't. If you dare hurt him, my sister won't let you go. Wen Shiji sneered coldly. Who are you trying to? I've heard. Your sister Yunshu doesn't care about Jihuai at all. They've been married for 2 years, and she's never even. And yet he dared to hurt my Mingyu. Today I'll teach that arrogant a good lesson. Xiaolinger gritted her teeth and she grabbed a cup from the coffee table and hurled it at Wen. That's nonsense. My brother-in-law and sister, if you dare lay a finger on him, my sister will skin you alive. Wen Shiji dodged the flying cup and sat down on a single-seater sofa. I'm not one to be scared. It's all over the circle. Xia Yunshu treats Jihuai like dirt. So how could she get angry for him? A sinister glint flashed in Wen Shiji. He crippled one of Song Mingyu's hands. Then I'll cripple both of his hands. He pointed at the other bodyguard. You guys go guard the entrance. When he arrives, make him crawl in on his knee. Xiaolinger was so furious, she rolled up her sleeves and charged at Wen. Bastard, I'll fight you to the end. However, before she could reach him, she was restrained by the Miss Xia, I don't want to hurt you, but if you keep being unreasonable, don't blame me for being rude. As soon as Wen Shiji finished speaking, a sharp screech of brakes sounded from outside. That was fast. Xiaolinger panicked and paced, silently praying it was her sister who had arrived, not Jihuai. When they forced her into the car early, she managed to send a distress message to Xia Yunshu. She didn't know if it had been. Wen Shiji crossed his legs and watched the entrance. However, the next the sound of bodyguards screaming came from outside. Wen Shiji froze. Could it not be Jihuai who came? As he pondered, the screams suddenly. In the next moment, I appeared at the casually twirling a baton I had taken from a body. I looked calm and Wen Shiji stared at me, his eyes wide with shock. The person standing at the door exuded an overwhelming. It was none other than Jihuai. When Xiaolinger saw me, she urgently shouted, Brother Jihuai, don't worry about me, just they won't dare do anything to. When Shiji snapped out and ordered his bodyguards, shut her mouth for me. Before he finished, a cold gust of wind swept. When Shiji felt a dark shadow flash followed by 2 heavy thuds. Xiaolinger was still worried about me a moment, but the next moment, she saw me effortless take down the 2 bodyguards holding her. One bodyguard was hit on the head by another bodyguard was directly kicked away by me. The 2 fell heavily to the ground. They didn't even have a chance to scream. When Shiji saw that things were going, he hurriedly shouted for help outside the door. Help! I smiled and looked at Wen Shiji. If you're talking about those dozen people outside, I advise you not to waste your breath. Wen Shiji gasped sharply. He looked at me in disbelief. The 20 men he brought tonight, all highly skilled professional bodies, were defeated by me so quickly. They didn't even last 10. How can this man be so powerful? My face remained expressionless, except my dark eyes were full of killing. My aura made them freeze, unsure of what. When Shiji shivered under my gaze, the pressure from my presence was suffocating him. But if he couldn't avenge Song Mingyu, how could he face him in the future? So summoning his courage, Wen Shiji spoke harshly. You injured Song Mingyu's face and hand. Now destroy your own face and hands, and I'll let you leave. I smiled mockingly at him. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Xiaolinger quickly pulled my hand and, let's go, don't mind him. I nodded and looked at Xiaolinger. Wait for me outside. Xiaolinger looked at me with worry. Chihuege, I spoke softly, unusually gentle. Listen to me. Xiaolinger nodded reluctantly. Xiaolinger walked out of the next moment. A scream from Wen Shiji came from inside. Xiaolinger was startled by the scream. She was about to go back to see what happened. Then she saw me walk out. Chihuege! She quickly ran over and grabbed my. Are you okay? I looked at Xiaolinger. Xiaolinger shook her head. Seeing that I was unscathed, she finally felt relief. Xiaolinger followed me out of the yard. She saw a dozen bodyguards lying scattered on the ground. She covered her mouth, not daring to even breathe. These people were all dealt with by Jihuai. Xiaolinger looked at me with admiration. She gave a thumbs up and said, what's your favorite color of compliments? I'll give you one. I chuckled. Just as I was about to speak, black Maybach, and a silver-gray Bentley driving toward us. "It's my sister!" Schellinger recognized one of the cars. She jumped up and shouted, "I'm here." Both cars stopped in front of us simultaneously. The door of the Bentley opened next, and a tall, elegant woman glanced at Schellinger, who was bouncing happily. She didn't look like someone who had just been. Then, Yunshu turned her gaze to me. With a sidelong glance, she noticed the brightly lit villa behind. At the entrance, 2 bodyguards were lying. I gave a devilish smile. I did it. Someone called me, saying if I didn't come, I should prepare for Schellinger's funeral. Schellinger pulled Yunshu's arm. "Sister, you have to thank brother-in-law properly. If it weren't for his timely arrival, I would have been in danger today." I waved my hand and said, "No need." They were actually coming for me. As soon as I finished, someone got out of the Maybach. The woman looked about the same age as Yunshu. She was extremely beautiful. I apologized for alarming Miss Xia and Wen Ruxue nodded slightly at Schellinger and me. Schellinger snorted arrogantly. "Agreed, but Wen Ruxue, this older sister is much prettier than Wen Ruxue glanced at the unconscious bodyguard. With a cold face, she said, "That arrogant fool. To think he dared to kidnap Yunshu. He's digging his own grave." Wen Ruxue's assistant responded and rushed into the villa. Moments later, he came back out. "Miss, what happened to the second young master?" Wen Ruxue's face turned slightly. "The second young master's left pinky finger. He has already passed out." Wen Ruxue's expression changed. Yunshu was also stunned. She instinctively looked at me. Wen Ruxue also turned to me. "Did you do this?" I nodded. "Yes, I did it, and trust me." Cutting off one of his fingers was already leaning. Schellinger looked at me seriously. "I can't believe Chihuage cut off No wonder he told me to leave earlier. He didn't want to scare me. How can Chihuage be so considerate?" Wen Ruxue clenched her fists and glared at. Although she had never met me before today, she had heard some rumors. Everyone said Yunshu's husband was a pushover. Someone anyone could. But now this supposedly weak man had cut off her brother's finger. "Yunshu, your husband, Wen Ruxue began, but then I glanced at Yunshu. "I have nothing to do with her anymore." "Chihuai?" Yunshu gritted her teeth angrily. "This man is so eager to cut ties with me." Schellinger glanced at her older sister. "Wasn't it she who forced Chihuage? Why does she look like she's the one being dumped now? How strange." I gave Yunshu a cold look. I had no interest in entangling with. So I spoke calmly, "Mr. Wen, if you want to avenge your brother, I'll be waiting. Just a friendly reminder, bring more people next time." After saying that, I got into the sports car. With a roar of the car sped away like lightning. By the time Schellinger reacted, all she could see were the red taillights disappeared. Schellinger was so excited she almost jumped. Let me tell you, Chihuage was absolutely amazing. All by himself, he defeated all of Wen Shiji's bodyguards' effort. Yunshu stared in the direction. Lost in deep thought, Wen Ruxue recalled my imposing demeanor earlier. A sense of intrigue rose in her heart. Not only had I severed her brother, but I also took down so many bodyguards. This man is extraordinary. "Yunshu, your ex-husband truly impressed me." Before Yunshu could reply, Schellinger interjected, glaring at, "Don't even think about going after my. He and my sister haven't finalized their." Wen Ruxue smirked playfully. "Then I'll wait until they do. Then I'll pursue him." A cold glare flashed in Yunshu's eyes. Wen Ruxue had meant it as a joke, but seeing Yunshu's reaction, her interest grew even. "Relax, Yunshu. You're divorcing him anyway. Pursuing him has nothing to do with you. Go ahead and try." Yunshu's gaze carried a sharp warning. After a pause, she added, "And keep your brother. If this happens again, it won't just be a finger next." Wen Ruxue nodded slightly. Tonight's events were entirely the Wen. Even if I hadn't acted, Yunshu wouldn't have let Wen Shiji off easily. Severing a finger was a lesson for him. Let's see if he dares to act recklessly again. With a cold face, Yunshu issued. Then she and Schellinger got into. When I returned to the hotel, and Ellie was holding a laptop, excitedly saying, "I found the details of a transaction involving Black Veil. I discovered a document with your name on it. It contained only a bank account. Using this account number, we identified who wanted you dead 2 years ago." Ellie said nothing, handing the tablet to me instead. I took it and looked. My face instantly hardened with disbelief. So the person who hired Black Veil to hunt me down was from the G family. I can't believe it. Just as I was about to call my grandfather, a news alert popped up on the computer screen. G family's Ji Heichen from Jin Cheng and are happily engaged with a wedding. Below the headline is the wedding photo of Ji Heichen and Jiang. I stared at the photo in shock. One of them is my cousin, and the other is who got engaged to me 5 years ago. And now they're getting married. They even took their wedding photos. Unbelievable. Do Ji Heichen and Zhang Yueting think I'm dead? I immediately searched online about family's recent events. I discovered 2 important things. The first thing is that Ji announced my death 2 years ago, and they even held a proper funeral for me. The second thing is that old Master G was devastated, leading to a stroke and paralysis. Grandfather was the only one in the G. Unless he saw my body with his own eyes, he wouldn't believe I was dead. Logically, the G family shouldn't know about me falling after being chased. I stared at the bank account I just invested. My parents passed away early, and I was raised by my grandfather to be the heir. If I died, the inheritance would go to the second branch. Thinking this through, Ellie walked to the wine cabinet and poured me 4 laughs, 5 sighs, she said. I brought enough people this time to flatten the G family. I gave her a cool glance. Don't meddle. Ellie plopped down on the sofa. What? You're not going to take revenge? I sipped the red wine. I'm such a kind person. Ellie snapped her fingers and smiled in relief. You haven't changed in the past 2 years. Pack up. Tomorrow, I'm going back. The next day, I didn't sleep well the night. As soon as I boarded the plane, I put on an eye. After getting off the plane, I woke up at 9 p.m. to have dinner, then took advantage of the night to make my move. In Huaguo, the Ji family is one of 6 in the north, the Su family of the capital, along with the Wen family and among them, the Xia family is the strong. In the south, in Jincheng, there are the Ji family and the Jiang family. However, 20 years ago, the Mu family suddenly emigrated for unknown reasons. Meanwhile, the Jiang family declined due to internal strife, and as a result, the Ji family became the most prominent, and the Jiang families were close friends, and she even saved my life once. Out of gratitude, my grandmother, over the years, she even considered forming a familial. So when I came of age, I was called back to getting 5 years ago. The engagement banquet was extravagant and grand, thanks to the efforts of both. The next day, the Jiang family stocked. After that, the Jiang family experienced thriving. Soon, I arrived at the Ji family's ancestral. I parked my car from the back gate. Alone, I climbed over the wall to enter. To my surprise, all the guards in the Ji family security was also much stricter than before. I made my way to the independent building. After searching the house, my grandfather, who had a stroke, could my second uncle have sent? Since I couldn't find him, I decided not to stay any longer. However, as I accidentally alerted a guard. Soon, the Ji family's alarm system blared to life. More and more guards started. In a panic, I ran up to the third. I came face to face with a man. Without hesitation, I knocked him out with one. I turned and ran into a guest room, intending to jump. Who knew that as soon as I entered, a gust of wind, someone was in the room. I quickly shut the door. When I turned around, I saw Yunshu standing in front of me. What was he doing here? Yunshu was equally surprised to see that. Why is Jihuai here? And why did he alert so many guards? Footsteps quickly approached from outside. I didn't have time to I darted into the bathroom. As soon as the bathroom door closed, there was a knock on the guest room. I gripped the bathroom door, listening carefully to the sounds. Someone came in and asked Xia if he had seen anyone suspicious. Yunshu replied. I let out a sigh of relief. At least he had a conscience and didn't give me away. Come out after the guards leave, came Yunshu's cold voice from outside. I stepped out, only to hear Yunshu ask, what are you doing? I raised an eyebrow and smirked. I should be the one asking you, Xia. What are you doing in my house? Your house? Yunshu froze. Are you? If not, how could it be? I noticed a cup of tea on the table. I picked it up and took a sip. Yunshu's expression was inscrutable. There seemed to be no one named Jihua. If he was from the Ji family, the guards wouldn't have failed to recognize. I put down the empty cup. You'll find out sooner or later. There was no point in. For now, I didn't want the family to know I was still alive. I walked towards the window to check the situation, but after just 2 steps, I felt my legs weaken. Yunshu thought I was injured and immediately rushed forward. I lifted my head. My face flushed unnaturally red. Yunshu froze then suddenly recalled the juice I had just drunk. It was brought in earlier by Ji Haichen's cousin. Damn it, that guy dared to drug it. I clumsily tugged at my collar, and the last shred of my sanity was consumed. I couldn't help but lean towards Yunshu clenched his jaw, grabbing my restless hands. Jihuai in the next moment, I kissed him. Yunshu's entire body was overwhelmed. A surge of boiling heat coursed. His heart raced. It was a feeling all too familiar. 5 years ago, on that night, Yunshu's burning gaze locked onto me. Could it be him? I fell into a night reliving that rainy night 5 years ago. At that time, I was in South Africa for humanitarian. Terrorists attacked the hospital. I was captured. They blindfolded me, and no matter how much I pleaded, the woman wouldn't let me go. Later that night, I opened my eyes to find Yunshu lying next to me. I was stunned. After 2 years of he had never even touched my hand. How my thoughts came rushing. The events of last night suddenly became crystal clear in my mind. I had been drugged and had treated Yunshu. I glanced at Yunshu, who stirred slightly. He was about to wake. Without hesitation, I swiftly struck his neck with a sharp chop. Yunshu, who had just opened his eyes, I let out a long sigh got off the bed, and left before dawn. Shortly after I left, Yunshu woke up. He sat up on the bed, but my presence was long gone. If not for the crumpled sheets stained with and the scratch marks on his shoulder, he began to doubt whether everything last night was real. Yunshu rubbed her aching neck. A flash of anger crossed her eyes. That damned man! He slept with her and even dared to knock her. Her phone rang twice in a row. Yunshu picked up her phone and found a message from me. She opened it, her gaze instantly turned ice. I sent her 9.9 yuan. Along with a message, poor service. Yunshu looked at the 9.9 yuan, emitting an icy aura. What did that damn man take her for? And that review? Absolutely shameless. Yunshu gripped her phone tightly. Furious, she muttered, "You better hope I don't." Otherwise, Yunshu suppressed her rage and called her assistant, Zhao Shui, to pick her up. Last night, she had gone to talk business with a servant accidentally spilled tea on her, so she went to a guest room to change. Yunshu recalled the drugged juice. A murderous look flashed in her eye. How dare they target her like this? How bold. Soon, the driver arrived. As Yunshu got in the car, Yang Ting, in the passenger seat, handed her a "Miss, as per your instructions, I investigate," but strangely, I couldn't find any connection between her and Ji. Yunshu glanced at the file, her expression cold. Their relationship, otherwise with Li's status, she wouldn't be so respectful. Just the thought of me and Li, possibly being lovers, made her restless. Jihui, how many secrets is that man still hiding? What exactly is his relationship with Ji Jia? And last night, Yunshu clenched her fists. She picked up her phone and dialed my number. The phone rang for a long. Finally, it was answered. "Hello," came my weak voice on the phone. It seemed I hadn't fully. Yunshu hadn't said anything when the next second she heard Li's voice on the phone. "Jihui, who is it?" Yunshu gripped her phone, anger burning inside her. Why was Li with Jihui early in the morning? Could they have been together last night? On the other end, I heard Yunshu's voice and immediately hung up the phone. When Yunshu called again, she found she was blocked. I had blacklisted her. "Fine, Jifeng. You really think I can't deal with you?" Yunshu pressed her red lips to a hint of coldness hanging on her seductive. In the hotel, Li stood by the bed, laughing softly as she watched me hang up the phone. I glared at her. "Did you find what I asked you to investigate?" "Yes, Jilao is currently staying in a suburban center." I nodded slightly and changed into a different outfit. When I arrived, I discovered bodyguards stationed outside Grandpa's. Taking advantage of him, I sneaked into the doctor's office. A few minutes later, I walked out wearing a white coat and a mask. "The young master is in." "Wait here." Stopping me. I nodded, a glint of coldness flashing in. The young master he mentioned must be Ji Hao. Inside the ward, Ji Haochen held Grandpa Ji Huaihai's hand tight, pressing his fingerprint onto a document. With this document, once he married Zhang Yueting, he would become the sole heir of the Ji. Ji Haochen stood by the bed, looking at the unconscious elderly man and sneered coldly. "Grandpa, after uncle passed away, you should have made my father the heir. But instead you were too biased. You favored uncle's family, and for all these years you worked to groom Jifeng into a qualified heir. But what was the result? He still ended up dead by our hand. You can't blame us for being rude. If you must blame someone, not only did you choose him but you even tried to marry him to my beloved. I will never allow that. Now the Ji family is under my father, and in the future, I will be the head of. As for Yueting, she will always be mine, and only mine." Ji Haochen let out a cold laugh. "So Grandpa, rest assured, we will make the Ji family great and stronger. Too bad you won't live to see it. If it weren't to avoid suspicion, my father wouldn't have kept you alive until now. After my wedding with Yue Ting, you'll no longer have any use to us." I stood outside the door, slightly bound. Murderous intent flashed. It seemed Grandpa's stroke was also connected to Ji Yuande and Ji Hao. Not long after, Ji Haochen came out of the ward, talking on the phone as he walked. "Has the outfit arrived? All right, I'll head over now." I watched Ji Haochen's back with a cold, fierce gaze. 3 days later was Ji Haochen and Zhang Yuting's. I needed to think carefully about what kind of gift to prepare for them, something they would never forget. After Ji Haochen left, I entered the ward. Upon entering, I saw my grandfather, whom I hadn't seen in over, lying on the bed with an oxygen mask. Grandpa, when he was energetic, and he had a habit of exercising. As a result, he was always healthy, even in his old age. Healthier than most of his peers. But now, lying on the hospital bed, he was emaciated. His face was. He looked like a lamp running out of oil. Seeing Grandpa like this, I became extremely. I immediately checked his. After examining him, I finally confirmed my suspicions. Grandpa didn't have a stroke. He was poisoned. That despicable scum dared to poison his own father. Truly reprehensible. He deserves to be struck by. Suppressing my anger, I knew this wasn't the time to be angry. I had to figure out a way to save Grandpa. I took a small vial from my pocket, poured out 2 pills, and fed them to Grandpa. Afraid of being I temporarily left the. I went to a nearby cafe and called Li to discuss the plan to rescue Grandpa. Once everything was arranged, I returned to the hospital. However, when I reached Grandpa's ward, I found the bodyguards outside had all been knocked out. And Grandpa, who should have been in the war, was nowhere to be found. I had only been gone for a little. How could Grandpa disappear? My phone buzzed. When I opened the message, I gasped. It was a photo of Grandpa sent from an unknown number. My eyes filled with. I immediately dialed the sender's number. As soon as the call connected, I demanded. A familiar voice came through the phone. Mr. G, Monsieur asked me to tell you to come to the Yuntan residence if you want to save. My spine stiffened. My eyes turned red with. Yunshu, that wretch, actually dared to kidnap Grandpa. The voice continued. Oh, and to remove her number from your blacklist. With that, Yangting hung up. The Yuntan residence, a series of luxury private homes developed by the Ji family in all major cities. The base of Yuntan Mansion is one. At this moment, Xia Yunshu is sitting on the sofa. A laptop is placed on her lap. Her fingers are swiftly tapping on the keyboard. The surveillance from last night's incident, however, many scenes have been deleted by. She is trying to recover them. Yangting walks up to Xia Yunshu. She says, Miss, have you called Mr. Ji? He should be on his way now. Upon hearing this, Xia Yunshu sneers, not even half, and I rushed to Yuntan Mansion. The moment I stepped in, I felt like I stormed toward Xia Yunshu. Xia Yunshu, what did you do to my grandfather? Xia Yunshu calmly, she stared at me with a smirk while typing on her laptop. Who is your grandfather? I chuckled angrily. Stop pretending! Since Xia Yunshu kidnapped my grandfather to threaten, it means she already knows my. Xia Yunshu squinted her eyes and scrutinized. Her red lips curled into a smirk. So should I call you Jihuai or Jifeng? I clenched my fists and glared at Xia Yunshu fierce. Jifeng is my formal name. Jihuai is my nickname. For all these years abroad, I used the alias Jihuai. Over time, I got used to it. Xia Yunshu continued, based on the timeline. It wasn't long after the Ji family announced Jifeng. And what you said last night? So I boldly you're the Ji family's eldest, the one who died 2 years. I shrugged since Xia Yunshu already knows. I have nothing to hide. I lifted my head and looked at her. I am Jifeng. Xia Yunshu looked at me and asked, when did you regain your memory? I looked indifferent and replied, the day you filed for divorce. Xia Yunshu thought about that day, her brows slightly furrowed. I gave a self-deprecating laugh. I gave a self-deprecating laugh. Speaking of which, if it weren't for your cold, I might not have regained my memory even now. Xia Yunshu looked at me with a displeased expression. Do you have to speak to me so harshly? I replied indifferently. I have no reason to treat an ex-wife kindly. Xia Yunshu turned her back. She glared at me in silence and suddenly asked, let me ask, when did you leave last night? I froze for a moment. If she hadn't brought it up, but the moment she did, I felt I was about to explode when Xia Yunshu suddenly stepped close. Her sharp eyes locked onto this morning when I called, why was Xiaili by your side? Don't tell me you spent the whole night fooling. When I heard this from Xia Yunshu, I felt a chill down my spine. Realizing what she meant, my face instantly turned. Was she implying I spent last night? Doesn't she know the truth? Judging by her tone, it seemed like she didn't want to acknowledge. I stared at Xia Yunshu, a hint of self-mockery flashing in my eye. Yes, I was fooling around with her last night. Xia Yunshu's back stiffened violently. Last night, I clearly stayed with. If I left to be with Ali, then what happened between us? Xia Yunshu felt an intense madness. She wanted to tear Ali apart. I'm his wife. Yet he spent the night with another woman. Jifeng, how shameless can you? I coldly looked at Xia Yunshu. Yes, I'm shameless. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent the past 2 acting like a fool thinking about the past 2 years of my life. I feel suffocated. When have I ever endured such humiliation? Xia Yunshu stared at me, her eyes narrowing dangerous. Xuanji suddenly grabbed my arm and started. I wanted to shake off his hand, but unexpectedly, I slipped. I fell heavily to the ground. Xia Yunshu tried to reach out to catch, but was a step too. She could only watch as my head slammed into the table. The sight of blood stung Xia Yunshu's. She rushed forward to help me, but I glared at her. Get lost! Don't touch me. I clutched the wound on, leaning weakly against Xia Yunshu's. I wanted to struggle, but had. Xia Yunshu panicked. She quickly shouted, Yangting, call a doctor immediately. Very soon, Yangting brought the family doctor to the villa. After examining my forehead, the doctor said and needed stitch. Having taken that medication and followed by all the commotion today, the wound throbbed painfully and in my haze, I drifted off to sleep. Xia Yunshu stayed by the bed, watching the doctor stitch her emotions slowly calmed down. She wondered to herself, what is wrong with me? Why did I lose control like this? Is it just because Jihuai, when they drank that glass of water, both of them were drugged with an effort? Considering the situation, wasn't staying by my side the best choice? But he chose to find Ali instead of staying with me. Xia Yunshu was unwilling to admit she felt intense madness. At that moment, Yangting suddenly walked in. Miss, Jiwande sent over a maid, saying they have identified who spiked your tea last night. It was her. Xia Yunshu let out a cold laugh. She didn't think the matter was that simple. Jiwande probably just found a scapegoat to brush me off. Xia Yunshu instructed, keep her here and continue investigating. When I woke up again, It was already dark outside. Instinctively, I tried to lift my hand, but it was caught by a slightly cool hand. The wound has just been dressed. I looked at Yunshu's infuriating face, feeling the urge to— Yunshu, what exactly did I do to offend? Why are you treating me like— Yunshu sat by the bed, without saying— I glared at her angrily. Yunshu, we are divorced. Divorced? Do you understand? An ex-wife should act like an ex-wife. Ex-wife. Hearing those two words made Yunshu furious. Didn't he love me so much? Did regaining his old memories make him forget his feelings for me? Yunshu grabbed my hand. Jifeng, we're still in the cooling off period. I can withdraw the divorce application any time. Hearing this, I was instantly enraged. Yunshu, don't be so hypocritical. You were the one who wanted the divorce. I granted your wish, and now you want to backtrack? Do you think it's that easy? What do you take me for? Yunshu stared at me. If you push me too far, I can do anything. Don't forget, your grandfather is still— I had almost forgotten that. Grandfather was still in— I grabbed Yunshu by the collar. Yunshu, if you dare harm my I will never forgive you. How dare she use my The sheer anger made my head start throbbing. Take it easy, Yunshu said. Steady, don't move too much. I've already arranged for Mr. G to be— A medical team is set up there. He will receive the best care and treat. You don't need to worry at all. Yunshu had a hunch. After I left the capital I might never return. To make me stay. This was the simplest and most direct method. As long as Mr. G was— Even if I went to— I would still return. I clenched my fists tightly and glared at her. Yunshu, what exactly do you want? Being overly attentive often means ulterior. Yunshu smiled slightly. She was silent for a few seconds before— I suddenly don't want to divorce. I was stunned. She doesn't want— I stared at Yunshu for a while. With a sarcastic laugh, I said, if we don't divorce, or are you planning to have your cake and eat it too? Don't talk nonsense. Yunshu looked at me with a dark expression. The previous information— I didn't find him. The smile on my face froze. No wonder she suddenly changed her mind about— Turns out she couldn't find her— I stared coldly at Yunshu and said, I'm not your obedient lapdog at your beck and call. Don't treat me as a stand-in for your wife. Yunshu frowned deeply. I've never treated you as anyone's stand-in. I waved dismissively. Whatever you say, I'm not going to stay with you anymore. I looked at Yunshu coldly. Yunshu, a forced relationship won't be sweet. Yunshu glanced at me indifferently. How would you know if it's sweet without tasting it first? I was speechless, a sense of inexplicable frustration. How did I not notice how shameless this woman was? Thick-skinned Yunshu saw that I wanted to— But she interrupted me first. Jifeng, I don't mean anything else. I just want your grandfather to be safe. Threatening me with my grandfather again. Yunshu, you're good. No divorce it is then. Let's see who'll outlast whom. In my opinion, Yunshu was just acting on— She found me interesting. The more I resisted her, the more intrigued she became, and the more she wanted to— If I went back to being obedient like before, she'd likely lose interest soon enough. Thinking of this, I said nothing more. Yunshu glanced at the time. Are you hungry? Do you want to eat something? I shook my head. Not— I want to rest. After speaking, I lay down, closed my eyes. Yunshu didn't bother me. She turned and walked out. As she went downstairs, she heard on the coffee table. Suddenly, Yunshu picked it up and saw the caller ID. Erguziaili. Yunshu tightly gripped the phone, her whole body radiating cold. After a moment, she answered. From the other side came a furious voice. I'm at the sanatorium. Why haven't I seen the woman? Where are you, Jihuai? With a cold voice, Yunshu replied. Jihuai is— Aili froze for a moment. Then she loudly said, Yunshu, you despicable— Where have you taken Jihuai? Yunshu's tone was unwavering. Jihuai is my husband, Yunshu's husband. Of course, he's with me. Aili immediately retorted, Do you have any shame? Do I need to remind you? Two divorced, and you're the one who initiated it. Yunshu paused for a moment, then her voice turned icy. So what? As long as the divorce certificate— Jihuai is still my husband. Aili, I warn you, stay away from my husband. Before Aili could respond, Yunshu hung up the phone. At this moment, Yangting walked over. Miss, the surveillance footage from it's already been sent to your phone. Hearing this, Yunshu quickly took out— Soon, in the footage, she saw the scene of me leaving. The time displayed was 5:36. There was also a section of the second-floor corridor. Yunshu opened it. She saw Lin Batian entering her room. The timestamp on the footage— The time was 5:56. Yunshu stared at the two surveillance videos. Yunshu suddenly realized— A gleam flashed in her eyes. When he woke up this morning, it was past 6 o'clock, less than an hour after I had left. As for Lin Batian, he only entered the room after I left. So the person who was with him was actually me. Yunshu tried hard to recall the events of— Some blurry images gradually came to mind. She remembered. It became clear. The person with him last night was indeed me. He misunderstood me. Yunshu glanced upstairs, her eyes filled with frustration. Why didn't he? Am I so unimportant to him that he wouldn't even bother? Not even a word of explanation? Yang Ting, seeing Yunshu deep in thought, spoke again. Monsieur, our people have investigated the drugs Jirende gave Lin Batian were also placed in the tea. As for the person Jirende sent over, it's undoubtedly a scapegoat. Yunshu closed the video, her face icy cold. Issue the notice. Suspend all cooperation with the GF. Terminate collaborations with any companies associated. Realizing it was late and I hadn't eaten yet, she instructed the servant nearby, make some nourishing porridge and prepare 2 light dishes to send upstairs. Before Yunshu finished speaking, a panicked voice came from upstairs. Miss, something's wrong. Mr. G jumped out the window and, what? Yunshu ran to my bedroom to check. I was already gone. I left Yunshu's private villa and met Aili, who came to rescue me, learning that Yunshu had kidnapped and that Elder G had threatened me. Aili was furious. Angrily, she said, if it's impossible, she made a throat-slashing gesture. Get rid of him. After all, widowhood can also restore. I was speechless. At least Yunshu saved my life. That's not very ethical. Aili laughed. I was just joking with you. Pretending to be innocent, suddenly care about Jihuai. I think you actually like her. You can't bear to let go. I tightened my jaw. Although I didn't want to admit, I knew deep down that even after regaining my memory, Aili noticed my silence and continued, I need to remind you, Yunshu isn't like us. I cut her off. No need to remind me. I know, precisely because I don't want to get tangled. I must divorce her. I have to. I'm determined. I won't let this continue. Feeling irritable, I returned to the hotel, changed clothes, and went out. I needed to vent. Yunshu found out where I was staying. She came looking, but as soon as she arrived at the hotel, she saw me leaving, getting into a sports car. Follow that car. Yunshu instructed the driver immediately. Half an hour later, I parked outside an inconspicuous bar. Yunshu glanced at the bar's sign and saw me go inside. She immediately followed. Haiji City's Jincheng Street, known for its bar, has an underground venue hidden below the street. The entrance is through this inconspicuous. Yunshu pushed the door open. The strong smell of alcohol hit her. It was only 3 a.m., but the bar was bustling with. The dance floor was a chaotic, lights flashing and heavy metal music blaring. Yunshu scanned the room, but she couldn't see me anywhere. Miss, would you like a drink? The bartender looked her up and down before approaching to. Yunshu didn't reply. She simply pulled out from her bag, handed it to the waiter to check. He took it, walked to the desk, and verified the code, then returned the card to him. Led him to the elevator to the basement. Out of the elevator, turn left. Yunshu nodded. Entered the elevator. The elevator went straight to the. As the door opened, the sound of chaos and shouting, cheers echoed. Yunshu stepped out of the. In front of him was a massive boxing ring. The electronic screen above the ring displayed a photo of champion boxer Arsene and his match history. The audience around the ring mostly consisted of wealthy and quite a few foreigners. Looking around, heads swayed. Every face was filled with wild excitement. Yunshu walked directly to the audience. At the top was the VIP section with the best view. Scanning the audience area, he still couldn't spot my figure. Could it be that he guessed wrong? He didn't come down at all? Is this for real? This match is against a newcomer daring to fight Arsene? Reckless. He'll get pounded into pulp. I bet he won't last 10 minutes. He'll be knocked down. 10 minutes is too long. 3 minutes at most. No, 1 minute. Arsene could knock him flying with. Yunshu listened to the discussions in the stand. Looking up, he noticed the screen switched to another name. A golden streak flashed in his mind. It was Xuanying. Though he rarely went to underground arena, he knew this legendary figure. During his 2 years in European underground, he created countless legends. Even now, European underground still tell many tales about him. Yunshu considered himself lucky to encounter someone like Xuanying. In a domestic underground. Xuanying? Am I freaking blind? How could it possibly be? He retired years ago. How could he show up here? Anyone who spent years in the has heard of the legendary Xuanying. He's a legend in the boxing world, the boss of all bosses. Xuanying rose to fame with his explosive iron fists. He swept through all the underground arenas from debut to retirement, he was undefeated. His record in the underground arenas remains unmatched to this day. Everyone in the audience was stunned. Soon, the referee stepped into the ring. Arsene followed right after. Everyone held their breath, staring at the other end of the tunnel, waiting eagerly. A few seconds later, a figure wearing a golden mask slowly emerged. He looked somewhat reserved, but cold and sharp. There wasn't a trace of him. The crowd went into an uproar. The screen above the ring kept updating the prize amount for the match. It had skyrocketed from the starting amount to hundreds of billions, and the numbers were still climbing. Yunshu stood in the audience, shocked. Although I was wearing a mask, Yunshu instantly recognized me. At a glance, through. Get down here. Xia Yunshu shouted at the top of his lungs. Pushing through the crowd, he rushed toward the... Does he even know what he's doing? He got injured just a few hours ago, and now he dares to step into the ring? Get down here. Xia Yunshu desperately tried to reach the ring, but the crowd was too excited. No matter how he tried, the match started soon after. As the bell rang, I dashed toward Arson like lightning. In the blink of a fierce punch landed on the opponent's face. Arson wasn't someone to be Although he took a hit, he quickly reacted with a counterattack. Seeing him swing a punch towards my head, Xia Yunshu's heart leapt to his throat. However, at that moment, I swiftly dodged. In the next second, I leaped into the air and landed. A powerful punch struck his rib. Arson let out a muffled groan and almost knelt down. The crowd roared continuously. The atmosphere grew more and the air was filled with excitement and madness. Arson's eyes turned red. His attacks became fierce, but each time I dodged skillfully. As the fight went on, Arson became more powerful. After a dozen moves, his body was covered in bruises. His face swelled up like a pig's head. Meanwhile, I wasn't injured at all. Not even my hairstyle was disheveled. This wasn't even a fight. It was purely me dominating Arson. The match didn't last long. In less than 10 minutes, I sent Arson flying out of the with a spinning kick. He passed out. The arena erupted once more, with deafening cheers and shouts. Everyone was calling out my name. I stood at the center. A spotlight shone down on me. The big screen displayed a close-up of my face. At this moment, no one dared to question my identity as Xuan. I never thought in my lifetime I'd witness the legendary Xuan Ying in action. What kind of divine luck is this? Is the great Xuan Ying planning to make a... I'm so thrilled. The entire audience cheered and shouted, expressing their admiration and love, except Xia Yunshu. He looked at me on the big screen. For some reason, his heart ached deeply. Why did his gaze look so empty? It was as if he was isolated from... There was no trace of emotion. From the moment he stepped in, his fists never once loosened. His lips were tightly pressed together, as if suppressing something. Something seemed off. The chaotic shouting around me made me uneasy. I mechanically raised my head to look at the audience. My eyes flickered. It seemed like I saw a familiar figure. I glanced briefly, and then turned. As soon as I stepped out of... I saw Xia Yunshu waiting in front of my car. Why is he here? Could it be that the person in the underground arena was really him? Did he recognize me? Xia Yunshu stared at me not far away and waved. I looked at him coldly. The irritation I had managed started bubbling up again. Seeing me motionless, Xia Yunshu strode. I looked at him and asked, Xia Yunshu, what do you want? That's what I should be asking you. Xia Yunshu grabbed my wrist angrily. Chihuai, do you even know what you were just doing? Did you forget you're still injured? At that moment, I didn't expect him to be so. When he saw me stepping into the ring, his mind was filled with worry about what if something happened to me? At that instant, felt like his heart was going to jump out of his chest. He wanted to fly up to the ring, and I stared coolly at Xia Yunshu, the corners of my mouth curling into a... If you hadn't mentioned it, I might have forgotten. Xia Yunshu gritted his teeth, his anger stuck in his unable to go up or down. He was utterly frustrated. Chihuai, don't forget your grandfather is still in... A cold glint flashed in my eyes. Through gritted teeth, I spat out 3 words. I felt like punching his face. Xia Yunshu opened the car door. I glanced at him. Reluctantly, I got into the car. Xia Yunshu was driving. His eyes occasionally glanced at me, pretending to nap. His gaze was filled with curiosity, trying to figure out how many identities I had. He suddenly asked, the eldest young master of the boxing champion Xuan Ying, who dominates, how many identities does this man really have? I opened my eyes, my cold gaze full of vigilance. I smiled faintly. You guessed. Xia Yunshu gave me a sidelong glance. Whenever you want to talk, I'm all ears. When we returned to Xia Yunshu, the sky was almost... The wound on my forehead had... I treated it again and took 2 more anti-inflammatory. After breakfast, I idly turned on the TV. I happened to see an interview with Ji Haochen and Zhang Yu. Mr. Ji, there are rumors that after the 2 companies will reach a closer collaboration. Can you reveal what kind of collaboration it will be? The Ji family and Zhang family have been... Our business collaborations have never stopped. Now that the 2 families are in-laws, our cooperation will naturally be closer. There are even rumors that the 2 companies might merge. Ji Haochen held Zhang Yueting's hand. Actually, I'm not sure either. It's all being discussed by my father and uncle. At this moment, Zhang Yueting added, everyone will know on the wedding day. The reporter asked, there are rumors online that you married Mr. Ji to fulfill the engagement between your family, but in your heart, you still love the late Ji. Is that true? At the mention of Ji Feng, Zhang Yueting frowned. I've always regarded Ji Feng as an elder. Back then, being engaged was only due to the pressure of our... Originally, we planned to call off the engagement, but who knew heaven would envy talent? Beside her, Ji Haochen lowered his head, a look of sadness from recalling painful memories. Poor brother Tang. After saying, Ji Haochen looked tenderly at his fiancée beside. My marriage to Yueting has nothing to do with business. The one I have always loved is Yueting. The reason we're getting married is because we love each other. My gaze darkened, staring coldly at the couple on the TV. A faint, icy smile tugged at my lips. So much for mutual love. It seems Zhang Yueting has forgotten how she used to chase it. Although I didn't love, we were once engaged. But with what he said, it sounded like I was clinging to her. I couldn't swallow this indignation. I might as well see just how deeply in love Ji Haochen and Zhang. While I was thinking, I heard a voice from outside. My name is Lin Batian. I'm Yunshu's friend. Please tell Yunshu that I'm waiting downstairs. I raised my eyebrows. Lin Batian? I remembered Ji Haochen's was also named Lin Batian. I turned my head and saw a servant leading a man dressed into the house. Lin Batian didn't It seemed he didn't expect another man to be staying at Yunshu's villa. When he saw me wearing pajamas, his expression immediately. Who are you? Lin Batian pointed at me and demanded loud. The servant who brought him in introduced me. This is Yunshu's husband. Lin Batian gasped in shock. What? This is Xie Yunshu's husband? Wasn't it rumored that Yunshu's husband was supposed to be extremely ugly? The man in front of me doesn't look ugly at all. Quite the opposite. So you're Yunshu's husband? Lin Batian quickly calmed down. With an elegant smile, his tone was full of sarcasm. No, I should say you're Xia Yunshu's ex-husband. He had already heard from a friend that Xia Yunshu and her former husband were divorced. Why should he fear someone abandoned by Xia Yunshu? Thinking this, Lin Batian looked at me with even more air. Yunshu already divorced you. Why are you shamelessly clinging to her? I sighed, pretending to be troubled. Who said I'm clinging to her? It's clearly her obsession with me. She's like a stubborn glue, refusing to let me go. Hearing this, Lin Batian, his voice sharp. Nonsense. Do you even know what you look like? Claiming that Yunshu is obsessed with you? I think you're delusional. I yawned, raised my hand and waved dismiss. Throw him out for me. Having not slept all night and expended a lot of energy, I felt tired. I stood up, ready to go upstairs. Lin Batian's face alternated between pale. He walked up to me, pointing at my nose. You're just a cast-off ex. How dare you act high and mighty? Let me tell you, I'm Yunshu's future husband. I raised an eyebrow and smirked. You think you can be Xia Yunshu's husband? Dream on. Lin Batian pulled out his searching for the photos when Xia Yunshu was still asleep. Yes. Don't believe me? Look, if it hadn't been for them who barged in that night, and he would have already been with you. But with these photos, he wasn't worried that Yunshu. I glanced at the photos on Lin, my expression subtly changing. In the photos, while Lin Batian was holding her in his arms, smiling sweetly. He was smiling so sweetly. When did Xia Yunshu and him? For a moment, I couldn't react. Lin Batian arrogantly pointed at me. Open your eyes and look clearly. I'm about to become the Xia fan. By then, you won't even be worthy of carrying my. I hate it when someone points a finger at me, especially while grinning like this. Without hesitation, I grabbed Lin Batian and twisted it hard. There was a sharp cracking sound. Lin Batian immediately fell to the ground. I laughed. You think climbing into Xie Yunshu makes you a Xia family son? Let me tell you, as long as I'm alive, you'll never achieve that. Well said. Xia Yunshu's voice suddenly came from behind me, accompanied by cheerful applause. I turned and saw Xia Yunshu descending the stairs with a smile on his face. Apparently my words had pleased. I snorted coldly, crossed my arms, and sat back down. I wanted to see how Xia Yunshu would deal with this side character in front of me. Lin Batian looked at Xia Yunshu Yunshu. Xia Yunshu narrowed his eyes at Lin Batian. I planned to deal with you in a few days, but you came to me looking for death. What he didn't expect was that Lin Batian had even taken. This man truly deserved to. Lin Batian sensed the chill emanate from Xia Yunshu and started. Yunshu, please listen to me. I was just missing you too much and wanted to come see you. Xia Yunshu sneered coldly. I have no time to waste on someone insignificant. Take him away and teach him a good lesson until he's willing to tell the truth. The bodyguards nearby responded in unison. Lin Batian looked terrified. Yunshu? No. I was wrong. I shouldn't have taken those photos. Yunshu cried for help, struggling. No matter what he said, the bodyguards didn't. In the end, he was dragged out. His screams grew fainter. I watched Xia Yunshu's sarcastic smile. After all, you're truly ruthless. Xia Yunshu glanced at me. She explained, the night before, he sneaked into the room and took those photos. He didn't even touch a single strand. I have nothing to do with him. Hearing her explanation, I felt a bit, but I still acted stubborn. No need to. I don't care, I said and went upstairs. Lying in bed, I couldn't fall asleep. I buried my head holding my breath, enduring the sharp pain in my chest. I counted my heartbeats over and over. Damn it. The thing in my blood was acting up again. For the past 2 years, this poison hadn't acted. Now I don't even have the medicine with me. I could only endure it. Suddenly, a soft body lay beside me. I was startled. The next moment, a pair of slender, soft hands reached out to uncover me. Are you trying to suffocate your... Yunshu said as she pulled me out from under. Seeing my face flushed red, she was both angry. I looked at her, my eyes flickered. Every time the poison axe, I just want to stay in a pitch-black room. Seeing me silent, Yunshu started undressing her. My eyes went blank. Yunshu, what are you doing? Could it be that she wanted to sleep with me? Yunshu raised her eyebrows and hugged me, saying, my nerves instantly tensed up. I sat up in bed, staring angrily at her. She met my furious gaze, her eyes showing a hint of playfulness. Her fingers unintentionally brushed against my chest. If you don't want to sleep, I can accompany you to do something. He paused then touched my cheek. Like what happened the night before. I cursed at him. Are you insane? We've been married for 2 years. And now that we're divorcing, you're acting all bold. Yunshu's gaze fell on the kiss marks on my neck. Sorry, he said. When I woke up yesterday morning at G, plus my head was a bit dizzy, so I don't remember much from last. I thought you'd left me to find Ellie. But I checked the surveillance and you didn't leave until morning. I interrupted Yunshu. We're adults. We just take what we need. Yunshu frowned. Although he felt like there was a sudden sense of being abandoned. He looked at me seriously. Don't you think you should take responsibility? I sneered. Over the years, I've given you plenty. It's you who didn't know how to cherish. Now it's too late to say anything. Yunshu stared deeply at me. Last night felt so familiar to him. He wanted to confirm something. I sighed, pulled out my phone, and prepared. Tell me, how much do you want? Yunshu frowned. Was I really trying to throw money? I continued asking, 50,000? 100,000? Seeing Yunshu's darkened face, and I deliberately full of disdain. In Kyoto, even the most expensive escorts, only you think 200,000 isn't. Yunshu couldn't hold back his anger. I actually compared him to an escort. This man really had the ability to drive him crazy. I glanced at him. Forget it, I said. I'm not going to take responsibility for you. Just seeing him now made me angry. So I turned over and faced away, out of sight, out of mind. Yunshu silently stared at my back. That feeling grew more and more familiar. After some time, he noticed my breathing became steady. He guessed I had fallen asleep. Yunshu needed to confirm something. He gently lifted my shirt, revealing my back. He stared at my back, his eyes showing a hint. He sighed inwardly. Although the feeling he got from me the night before was very similar to that, I wasn't that person after all. I didn't have the tattoo on. Yunshu gently put my shirt back. His cold, beautiful eyes were filled with complex emotions. After a while, Yunshu reached out and gently hugged. He placed a soft kiss on my neck. It's okay. It doesn't matter if you're... Suddenly I shifted, turning into his embrace and nuzzle. When I was asleep, it was hard for him to associate me with the fierce and power. Yunshu stared at his heart raced uncontrollably, and his face felt unbearable. He quickly got up and went to the bath. After finishing his shower, Yunshu wanted to... At that moment, Yunshu walked to the balcony and saw Ellie, accompanied by... surrounding the villa entrance. Yunshu, get out here. Ellie had woken up early to find that after checking the surveillance footage, she discovered, having known me for 7 or 8 years, Ellie understood me too well. The fact that I went to without saying a word likely meant Ellie called me. She checked the surveillance outside and found that I had been taken away. She discovered that I had been taken. Ellie was so furious she skipped. She immediately brought people to storm Yunshu. Yunshu, stop pretending. I know you're in there. If you don't hand over Jihuai, I'll break in. You're divorced, yet you still cling to him. Don't you have any shame? Ellie's voice. Finally, Yunshu walked out from inside. As soon as he appeared, Ellie rushed forward. Yunshu narrowed his eyes slightly. And Jihuai, did you call him? Ellie glared coldly at Yunshu. Suddenly, she noticed he was wearing pajamas. He said Jihuai was still, so they had just slept together. Ellie's anger surged. If it weren't for the iron gate between them, Ellie would have rushed in and torn him. Yunshu, don't think you can tie Jihuai down using old master. He's never been the type to bow to anyone. Ellie crossed her arms, speaking confidently. You two will get divorced. Yunshu's expression dark, his face growing icily cold. Ellie noticed his displeased look. She pulled out a pen and checkbook from her bag. Fine, name your price. How much do you want to divorce Jihuai? Yunshu sneered. Did he look like he was short on money? Why did everyone think money could solve everything? Seeing Yunshu's silence, Ellie continued. Oh, I forgot. You probably don't need... How about this? I'll give you a diamond mining license. This isn't something money can buy. Hey, Yunshu, I'm not done talking. Don't walk away. Yunshu completely ignored Ellie outside. Back inside, he immediately called. Not long after, Ellie received a... What? I have to go back right now? Fine, I'll be there soon. After hanging up, Ellie sent me a message. Hung up the phone. Ellie sent me a message saying she had something urgent, then left for the airport with her team. Yunshu stood on the balcony, watching Ellie leave in a hurry. Her red lips curled. I rested well for 2 days at Xia Yunshu's villa. 2 days later, it was finally the day of Zhang Yueting and Su Hao. Ji Haochen and Zhang Yueting are both future heirs of their respect, a real-life prince and princess. A match made in heaven. The wedding was set in Jin City's tall and most luxurious hotel, Bixi Villa. Attendees were no less than prominent fans or business and political. The wedding was extremely high profile, and not only did they invite, but also held a live broadcast. Wow, the chapel is so dreamy. It's like a castle. So romantic. It is said that Ting and Ji Haochen's wedding rings are worth billions. I wonder how stunning the bride will look when she appears late. The audience online can't wait. Watching the live broadcast of the wedding and commenting non-stop. They are more eager than the groom. As time passed, guests gradually arrived. At 11 a.m., the wedding officially began. A solemn priest stood on stage and gave a speech. Then, the groom, Zhang Yueting, in a sharp suit, accompanied by beautiful and romantic. The heavy doors of the chapel slowly opened. In a sparkling, custom-made white wedding dress, Jiang, elegant and noble, beautiful and Ji Haochen smiled as he met Zhang Yueting's gaze, feeling an immense sense of fulfillment. After all these years, today, he was finally going to marry. His father was right. Man can conquer death. Even if Zhang Yueting was Ji Feng's fiancée, so what? In the end, she still became my wife. Thinking about this, Ji Haochen, a proud smile flashed in his eyes. Zhang Yueting walked towards him. They met in the middle of the red carpet, hand in hand, walking together to the groom. Mr. Ji Haochen, do you take Miss Zhang Yueting to be your lawful wife, in good times and bad, in wealth and poverty, in sickness and in health, to love and cherish her forever, to be faithful to her until the end of time? Zhang Yueting held Ji Haochen's hand, gazing at him affectionately. At that moment, the chapel doors were suddenly pushed open from the outside. Everyone turned to look at the entrance. There at the doorway stood a handsome man backlit by exuding a cool, and his appearance and demeanor were flawless and captivating, like a bright moon rising in the dark night. As soon as he appeared, even the brightest stars seemed to dim. Oh my, is this Phantom Thief Kaido? Could he be here to crash the wedding? This outfit totally steals the spotlight from the groom. Why does this handsome guy look so familiar? I walked step by step into my aura and good looks, stunning everyone, leaving the crowd speechless. As I walked into the chapel, Ji Haochen and Zhang Yueting finally saw my face clearly. Ji Haochen's eyes widened, staring at the person filled with disbelief. How could it be him? Wasn't he supposed to have died 2 years ago? Why is he still alive? This can't be right. The corners of my mouth lift, my smile calm and graceful. It's been 2 years. Cousin, don't you recognize me? Ji Haochen pointed at me in disbelief. Ji Feng is actually still alive. Zhang Yueting stared at me, shocked as if struck by lightning. Not just her, but also the Jiang family members nearby looked utterly mortified. I sneered mockingly. Are you disappointed that I'm still alive? After saying that, I turned to the wedding guest. Hello, everyone. I am Ji Feng, the eldest grandson. 2 years ago, I was ambushed and somehow rumors spread saying that I had died. Now I'm back to let everyone know that Ji Feng, the sole heir of the Ji family. Ji Yuande glared at me with a nearly grinding. As long as I'm alive, the position of heir will never belong to. He took a deep breath, suppressing his shock and anger before standing up. Xiaofeng, it's so great that you don't know how heartbroken your second uncle was when he heard. I replied coolly, my tone, oh, I didn't realize my second uncle cared so much. Ji Yuande gave an awkward laugh and reached out his hand, saying, you're my nephew. Of course I care about you. Today is your cousin and Yueting's. Let's talk about other matters back at home. We can't let anything ruin the wedding. I brushed aside Ji Yuande's hand, letting my gaze sweep over Ji Haochen. Second uncle, family matters can. As for other things, Ji Haochen's heart sank. Ji Feng must have come back to take. He would never allow anyone to take her from. Thinking this, Ji Haochen quickly spoke up. Ji Feng, I'm sorry. I know you had a marriage arranged, but these past 2 years, Yueting has fallen in love, and I love her deep. Please let us be together. Ji Yuande also chimed in. Yes? Xiaofeng, they haven't done anything to wrong. They got together after your supposed. Please, for the sake of their true love, give them your blood. I looked at them calmly and smiled slightly. I didn't come here today to ruin their. Ji Haochen's eyes lit up. Then you. I took a ring out of my bag and handed it to. This is the token of our engagement from 5 years ago. Since you and Ji Haochen have feeling, let's end our engagement here. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. Zhang Yueting accepted the ring I handed, momentarily unable to believe. She thought I would cling to her At worst, I would disrupt today's wedding. But instead, I gracefully annulled and even returned the engagement token to her. Ji Haochen looked at me with a face full of gratitude. Thank you. Ji Yuande stood to the side with a face full of, second uncle always knew you were the most. Please take your seat. Not so fast, I interrupted Ji Yuande, and looked at the Zhang families sitting near. Mr. and Mrs. Zhang, since my engagement to Zhang Yueting, the collaboration between our families is no longer necessary. And regarding the 1 billion that was given to the Zhang family as a debt, I hope you can return it within a week. Zhang Yueting's father immediately stood up, and our collaboration with the Ji was arranged by Elder Ji. You have no authority. Mrs. Zhang also stood up, her gaze sharp and acute. The $1 billion was voluntarily. Why should we return it? I looked at Zhang Wen, watching the couple feign. Mr. Jiang, you must be joking. I hold 40% of the company's shares. Do I not have the authority to cancel a collaboration? As for the $1 billion, it was my dowry, and there were clear annotations when the payment was. Now that my engagement with your daughter is canceled, that money, both morally and legally, must be returned. Mrs. Jiang, if you have any doubts, consult. Hearing this, Mrs. Jiang's eyes and her expressions, she grabbed my hand affectionately. I know you still have feelings for Yueting. Actually, she and Ji Haochen haven't read. Upon hearing this, Ji Haochen panicked. Mom, what do you mean by that? Mrs. Jiang smiled slyly at Ji Haochen. Ji Haochen, you and Yueting aren't married. Isn't it too early to call me mom? If not for Ji Feng, Ji Haochen would have been the sole heir of the Ji. Yueting marrying him would have been a great benefit, but now that Ji Feng is alive, he is the rightful head of the Ji family. Ji Haochen is no match for Ji Feng. In that case, it's better for Yueting to marry Ji Feng. Ji Haochen's face alternated between green and pale. Mrs. Jiang grabbed her daughter and pulled her close. Yueting, in my eyes, you and Ji Feng are a match made in heaven. Apologize to Ji Feng, and let's cancel the wedding today. Ji Yuande was so furious he nearly burst out, but Zhang Wenjian leaned over, and they exchanged a look, and both chose to remain silent. Mrs. Jiang pushed Zhang. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and apologize and put this ring on him. Zhang Yueting glanced at Ji Haochen, calculating her options internal. Though she liked Ji Haochen, if he weren't the heir to he wouldn't hold as much attraction for her. After weighing her options in her mind, Zhang Yueting quickly walked up to me. Her expression filled. Ji Feng, I'm sorry. I thought you were dead. That's why, but deep down, I've always had feelings for you. Can we renew our engagement? Hearing this, the bouquet in Ji Haochen's hands felt. His face turned pale. And you're choosing to abandon me for him at this moment. Ji Feng, why didn't you just die? Ji Haochen stared at me intently, his gaze venomous like a snake's. I maintained a faint smile on my face and calmly accepted the ring Zhang Yueting handed me